Something in the water taught me how to crawl. Something in the water taught me how to fall. Something in my blood starts to take a hold.
Hey, welcome back to Something in the Water podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sean Clark.
Along with Uncle Dave Griffin, and our guest this weekend is
Bill McIntosh. You hit the bottom of the barrel for guests.
That's
all I can say.
Our good friend Bill McIntosh from Waycross, Georgia. Glad to have you, Bill.
Well, I'm glad to be here in such esteemed company.
Yes, sir.
Old and new.
Huh?
Old and new.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, this is it's Cherokee Heights that we're sitting in Justin Mercer of Caution Light Media over there off camera. He's the man that makes it all go, and we're sitting in his house in the middle of Cherokee Heights, one block off of Ava Street, and
He probably don't want everybody to know where he lives.
well, that's all I'm gonna say.
Well, this is pre-recorded. When by the time you see this, we'll be gone.
Yeah, he moves every
So
week.
don't come and bother him.
That's right. But Bill, you live just a couple of blocks from here in Cherokee Heights.
Scruggs Street.
Scruggs Street. And Cherokee Heights, for all of y'all aficionados out there, you know that's where Graham Parsons was raised up.
Down the road.
12 years of his life in Waycross, Georgia. We talk about Graham Parsons a lot on this podcast, so I'm sure y'all have come to expect that. But, Bill, it's good to have you, fellow Cherokee Haitian.
Hessian?
Bill is, he's kind of like done it all. He's a musician, played in some local bands around here back in the days, and he got a degree in music, and
2 of them.
2 degrees in music. Taught. He was an instructor at several schools in Georgia, and he's played on cruise ships. He's played in orchestras. He's a historian too. But hopefully we can touch all the bases and get into all of that. How you doing, buddy?
I'm all right, man.
Yeah,
Just alive and kicking. That's all I can do.
well, you had a little scare lately, right?
Yeah, well,
little,
I had a little skin cancer issue that after they got in, it was pretty big, and did a couple of procedures locally, and it kept getting worse. So I went up to Medical College, Georgia in Augusta, and they basically peeled back half my face and took all the cancer out and sewed it back up and kept my lymph nodes and my salivary glands, and I went through 6 weeks of radiation. But, man, I'm from Cherokee Heights. Don't slow us down.
Yeah,
That's the way it is out here, man.
Yeah.
We don't play.
Well,
but, yeah, it's all good. People have been real good to me. I really appreciate it. People have been very good to me.
Well, you've been in our hearts and prayers too, buddy. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the old days. You're a bit younger than me. I don't know exactly how much younger.
I'm 63.
63, so you're 5 years younger than I am. So, time I was graduating from high school, you were just about to enter.
Well, I grew up in Douglas. I went
You did?
second through the 10th grade.
I did not know
That's
that.
my Rodney Mills connection, see?
Yeah. Old Rodney Mills, the great producer in rock and roll.
Yeah,
from Atlanta.
I used to follow that band around,
38 Special.
No, the Bushmen, the original.
His original band.
Back then, people weren't so mean. And I was at 6th grade. My mom would let me ride my bicycle at 11 o'clock at night down to the rec center 3 blocks away, and I'd sit back there and listen to Rodney and Junior and Joey and Harry, all those boys
Harry
back in their heyday. That was a big, big influence on me. But I was born here, always considered at home. you know, been in and out of Waycross over the years. But yeah, the Douglas is kind of my Rodney Mills connection.
Yeah. And the Bushmen, that band that you're talking about, some of the members of the Bushmen later become the Candymen?
No, the Candymen ended up being Atlanta Rhythm Section.
Okay.
They backed up Roy Orbison for a long time. And they were a good studio group, but just none of them wanted to go out and play live.
And what I always heard about Atlanta Rhythm Section was that they were a great studio band. And if you ever saw them live, it'd be a hit and miss kind of thing.
Yeah,
they just
when
could
Rodney
never
left,
recreate it.
When Buddy built Studio One, and Rodney designed that, they brought Atlanta Rhythm Section with them at that point because they had been working some over at Lefevre Sound before Buddy opened that, and then Bill Lowry and all came in on that too.
So you actually grew up. The majority of your childhood was in Douglas, which is one town away from Waycross to the west of us.
I was back and forth a lot. My grandma's house, the house I live in now.
Oh, okay.
I was over here a lot.
Yeah. But once you, for the 11th and 12th, you came Ware County?
From Ware County. Yeah.
Was it Ware County High School? Okay.
Good band program.
By that time, yeah, it was. We talked about that on our last podcast with Gary Brown.
Yeah, we had, my senior year, at Ware County, we had 5 all-state musicians, and Waycross had 3. So combined, that one year, we had 8 all-state musicians in this town.
Dang.
It was some good times, man.
A lot of talented lips. I'm assuming you were one of the all-state musicians.
I still think that it was a mistake. Yes, I was, but I was a terrible music reader back then. I think it was a mistake, but I accepted the medal just the same.
Well, just to let you know, I was selected as the candidate for Governor's Honors Program, and went all the way to Atlanta, and this is shades of my son Connor Griffin. Got half past Macon, and my uncle Bud drove us up there. Drove me, my mama, and her mama, and Uncle Bud's mama, my grandma. With the 4 of us, drove up to Atlanta for me to audition for Governor's Honors Program. And about half past Macon, I said, I forgot my drumsticks.
Oh, no.
Sound like Connor?
Well, he forgets his drum.
Well, we got up. It was a Saturday, and it was probably about February. It was drizzly cold. And I remember Uncle Bud put me out on a sidewalk in Atlanta, and I ran into a music store up there. Downtown Atlanta, bought me some drumsticks, and he kept circling the block till I came back out on the sidewalk. I got to the audition, and in the room, in walks the assistant band director for Ware County as the judge, Dan Galtney.
Oh, man.
And I don't know what that triggered in me. It was like, oh, hell, I know this guy, and I just took
the pressure off.
No, it added pressure for some reason. For some reason,
I know.
I should have been a shoe-in.
Huh? Yeah. Well, maybe that was. I just wasn't expecting him. Of all people, I was expecting a stranger. And I think I would have done better with a stranger than some.
I played for 100,000 people before. But one Sunday morning, I played a special and sang over at the Presbyterian Church here.
Yeah.
And the baby grand, they got the choir kind of around you. I was the most nervous I ever was. A bunch of people sitting right on top of me while I was playing. I was like,
yeah.
I'd much rather sing to a bunch of people than just
Well, there's something about
20.
something about a stranger. You know, when you go out of town for a gig, you're a little more relaxed. You know, it's because like these people don't know me.
Yeah,
I could be.
But if I was getting
anybody I want to be,
if I was getting judged and one of the judges is from the school, I'd be like, "We got this.
we got this."
he does. Sean didn't know Dan Gaultney yet. I had him.
He was a hard nose.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He used to say, "Well, when you write, if you wanted to do anything you wasn't interested in, he'd say, well, when you write your book, I'll read it." And so when I wrote my sight reading book that got endorsed by 3 super heavyweights in L.A., and they wrote the foreword, I mailed him a copy of my book.
Yeah, that's another mantle that Bill wears that I did not say at the outset. He's an author, book writer.
Whatever.
And can you say you're a publisher too?
Yeah, just basically what I've done in the last 3 or 4 years is I tried to combine a lot of the things that I had done during my career. And one of them was that I just assumed everybody, when they heard a song, could play it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, when I was playing trumpet or saxophone in bands, I'd hear a song maybe that my oldest brother had played in the 60s. And all of a sudden, boom, I just play it. Mm-hmm. And so I started writing lead sheets and doing transcriptions. And now one of my big things is I've got over 400 arrangements out for 3-piece horn section. And I sold in 20 countries.
Dang.
So it's
Which 3 horns?
Well, that's what's unique about my stuff is I include parts for everything. So whatever 3 horns you have, you'll have all 3 parts.
Oh my gosh! But how many parts is it that you have to write then?
Well, with the computer program, once I write the parts, it does all the transposing and stuff for me.
That's pretty cool.
So, you know, anything to keep from getting a real day job.
You're speaking of day jobs. You had your share of them, haven't you?
Oh yeah.
So out of high school, where you were an all-state band member, and you graduate,
Troy State 1 year.
Troy State, okay, which is a great music school.
To be honest with you, I was really surprised. It was more marching band and
okay.
But I don't know
That's Alabama.
Yeah, that thing about getting up and going to class didn't really agree with me.
Me neither.
And so they told me I probably need to stay home the next year and sleep. So I took some time off before I went back. I took about 3 years off, and I went back to Valdosta State. Great jazz program. There are so many great
musicians. That Ed Barr?
No, Bob Greenhaw was doing it then.
Didn't Ed Barr?
He did it before Bob Greenhaw.
Was he the instructor over there?
Yeah. Bob Greenhaw has sent more players to the bigs, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And that was a great education. I've done band directing, middle school, high school. Taught I taught music appreciation at Waycross College.
I remember that. I went out there
I had you out,
as a guest one night.
That's right. You were a guest lecturer.
I was a lecturer.
Yeah. That's what they call it in academic.
What did I talk about?
It was during Graham Parsons Festival.
You talked about Graham Parsons?
Right.
Okay.
But I've been fortunate. I've taught. I've played. I've been fortunate to get to play. I played like with the Temptations, and of course, you and I we did the Percy Sledge gig several times together.
That's right. Roll that beautiful bean footage, Percy Sledge.
Yeah, we did it. We did it.
We did a Percy Sledge flyer.
I have. I've got one of the posters signed.
I do too.
You go.
There's mine right there. It says,
yes, sir.
To Dave, Percy Sledge.
That's the same thing he said to me.
He called you Dave.
Well, I've also got a picture of us on stage with him that he signed.
Wait a minute. Is that what we call ourselves, Sledgehammer?
Yeah, that was the first time we did it.
A special guest, Sledgehammer.
Yeah.
We was just his backup band.
Right.
But see, what happened was that was March 23rd, 2001. I don't remember if that was the first or second time, but it's probably the first time.
I think that was the first time.
So we may have done both of the gigs in the same year. I don't recall, but twice he came to Waycross. Twice he played at Little Nights. It's a beautiful little nightclub here in Waycross.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow or another, was it through you that somebody reached out from his camp
No,
to somebody
you actually
here?
called me for it.
I did? Okay.
Yep. It must.
Well, I can't remember exactly how.
Were you working at the music store then?
I was,
That
but
was probably where it came from.
I don't recall
I played
how
with him before
it-
that.
Well, you
But
might
they
have been
didn't
the
call me.
catalyst.
No, you
then.
called me. Because remember, I borrowed some sound equipment. We didn't have a sound system back then.
Well, what happened was somebody got in touch with us, and we put together. Well, we had a band. We had a band called Rhythm Oil.
Right.
It was myself on rhythm guitar, John Randall Smith on drums, Bill Smith on lead guitar, Tony Kaysen on lead guitar, Steve
Glisson. Knapp played the first show.
Napoleon
played the first show.
Williams played the
Right.
first show. Wow.
Yeah.
And
the second time Steve was there.
okay,
One of
Steve
my-
Glisson
one of my
played the
very
second
favorite-
show as
Very
bass
favorite
player.
bass players.
Now, and then we pulled you in for keyboards or
Yes,
horns.
because I was playing keyboards because Bill wasn't playing keys in the band back then.
Okay.
So I
Yeah, I
came
wonder,
in.
did Bill play in that? Because we wouldn't have had no need for two guitar players.
Well-
I don't think.
You know, the first time, I think it was Tony wasn't there.
Okay.
The second time he was, because I remember they did Whiter Shade of Pale, and
Yeah.
instead of playing the organ intro, they did it as a harmonized two-guitar lead that just blew Percy away.
Okay.
Wow.
You know, I've got that
That
on
was
tape.
exciting.
I've got that on tape.
I
I've got a
didn't-
DAT recording
wow,
of it.
That's great.
I'll have to
I'd
get it
love
for
to
you.
get a copy of that.
But yeah,
That was exciting, man.
Yeah.
To be able to say I backed up Percy Sledge twice, and not once, but twice.
but what's been neat about my career is that through different affiliations I've had, like when I was in college, we had the drummer from the Count Basie band spend a year with us.
Dang.
Had Red Rodney, who was Charlie Parker's trumpet player.
Uh-huh.
We got to open for Dizzy Gillespie, Phil Woods, and you know, working on the cruises and different gigs I played. You know, it's been pretty cool to just have a little touch of the real, you know, of the big guys.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's kind of like you have to pinch yourself. And I'm standing here talking to Dizzy Gillespie. You know, that's just like. And Red Rodney is huge in the jazz world.
Yeah.
He took Miles Davis's place,
Uh,
and so it's been really cool to get to rub shoulders a little bit, and more importantly, to learn from these people.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I think probably the highlight of my career though was in 2012 I sounded taps at Arlington National Cemetery. That
wow.
was, for me, that was it. It's as good as it'll ever get.
How'd you get that gig?
I was in an organization called Bugles Across America.
Called
Bugles
Across America.
And it's an organization that is trying to stamp out the electric bugle. You know, basically, if you buglesacrossamerica.org, if you go there and you request a bugler for a military funeral, they'll get you the real thing.
Yeah.
And so it was the 150th anniversary of the bugle called Taps. And that morning at 10:30, we did a mass harmonized version with 197 players.
Wow.
Good
And
Lord.
then we got to choose our location to play at solo at lunch. And of course, I did it in the Confederate section.
Nice.
So yeah,
Well, you were from the South.
you got that right.
Well, that's almost like bugles across, not against. But bugles for just shorthands, purposes, did they often just shorten it to bah? Yeah,
Man.
but Bugles Across America, but what they were going with was
Hey, Sean, take Dave's drink.
they were against electric. That's almost like
Right.
the purists that frowned on Bob Dylan when he went electric at the Newport Folk
And it's
Festival.
funny because the guy on the electric bugle is a friend of mine. He's the guy I started with in Douglas.
I've never seen an electric bugle.
You have. I
have?
promise you, it looks like a regular bugle, and they got an MP3 player in the end of it.
A MP3 player?
Yes, because they cut back so much with honor guards and all of and band programs.
Well, what's actually playing though? It's a
recording.
Oh, it's a recording.
Oh, so the person there is a person holding it though,
right? But he's not playing it,
and he's not playing it. Okay, well, I could do that.
That's Milli Vanilli.
Milli Vanilli, as far as bugles
picturing some kind of got buttons on the side of it.
I was thinking it was
like,
electrified. Like
it's a recording,
like
one of those electric saxophone,
like
deals.
It might have a built-in mic or something.
Wow.
That's cheating.
Yeah, I think so.
That ain't no fun.
Yeah. But that's
cool though that you got recognized.
Well, I tell you, man, it's been so cool though to get to experience a lot of the history, working through the jazz and the old soul, and it's really I've been a history buff all my life.
Mm-hmm.
When I was working on one cruise ship, I got to go to Mayan Indian ruins and climb up, just like you see on National Geographic. But
God.
it's I'm glad that I got to experience a lot of these things that this generation knows nothing about. Mm. They really don't. So
well, we did. We grew up in a special time. 1960s was a pretty influential decade as far as music goes. It started out very innocent, and it ended up 9 years later at the height of excess.
Well, it's just like starting with the jazz age,
mm-hmm.
and it ended with White Bread Big Band,
mm-hmm.
and of course then they had to start over, and the bebop stuff led to early rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
And that led to we kept going to that until it got into excess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're very knowledgeable about all this stuff too, and you've used that. Use your knowledge and your research and stuff to. You've written a lot of newspaper articles.
Yeah,
for the local paper.
Yeah, when I first moved back here, I always remember my dad talking about the city auditorium. He was always carrying on. I saw so-and-so there. I saw so-and-so. And I was thinking to myself, he's senile or something. I don't know. But at some point, I started seeing some real validity to what he was saying. Mm-hmm. And when I moved back here and to take care of my mother before she passed away, and then I was here and I had some time, and I started going to the city auditorium, to the city library. I wish Connor had been there then. And I basically went through every Waycross newspaper from about 1935 to maybe 60.
Mm.
And I started out with it just looking at the city auditorium, but I also started taking notice and record of places around here that was using local musicians and who was playing and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a very interesting journey, and the people in this town, they've always been not very aware of the great music tradition here. I mean, it survives to this day. There's always, you pick up a cat and throw it, and you're going to hit a good musician in Waycross. Mm-hmm. That, the only difference in me and most of the people are here is that I was crazy enough to pack up and go.
Mm-hmm.
But there are 20 or 30 guys in this town that are much better musicians than I'll ever be. But as I've studied what I call popular music of America from, let's say, 1900 forward, I have, it's been an incredible journey. And what really brought this up was you and I were at dinner one night, and I was telling you about the fact that the reason that the Beatles in Liverpool and the whole Mercy Beat thing busted out before London did was that Liverpool was a port.
Seaport.
It was an international seaport. And the British people that worked on the ship or the Americans, they knew that the Red Label Atlantic and the blues and the chess, the blue label and the red label and all of those were not available in England. And so, they were bringing that stuff in, and, the young kids were just eating it up. So they were getting that, where London was not getting it yet. Now, they would eventually but in London, you pretty much had to mail order and know what you wanted to get that stuff. And, the American music scene, you got New Orleans, you got everything in the world coming in down there. It was started by the French, sold to the Spanish, taken back by the French, and then the Americans, and you had people from Haiti and Cuba and Guatemala and, all over, you're bringing in all these influences. And after the Civil War, you had what's called the big black migration. And again, it was about transportation. The Mississippi River, all points north.
Chicago.
Well, you saw Memphis built along the way. You saw St. Louis and Joplin built with the ragtime. And long before New York was a haven, Chicago was home of American music. It was big in the blues and jazz. Louis Armstrong played with King Oliver there. He got, New York came along later. And, Waycross kind of falls into that same category.
How so?
Well, I used to say when I taught and when I've written materials and all, if you just listen to an artist on a song, you get a very limited. Okay, if you're just a casual listener, that's great, but an artist or a genre of music is a reflection of the people making it, and it's been that way since the beginning of time. Down in South Africa, when they were getting fired up to go to war, they were making music. And so it was a reflection of what was going on around you. And I think one of the reasons that Waycross was such a hotbed is that before interstate system, we're talking 30s, 40s, 50s, US 1 was the main thoroughfare, all points north. It started at the Keys, went through D.C., and all the way into Canada. And if you were going anywhere in South Carolina, you had to start out on one. Pennsylvania.
The main artery.
Yeah, and so all of these great artists were coming through Waycross, and they needed a drop-off place to get traveling money, probably during the middle of the week. And then they built the City Auditorium. And when the City Auditorium was built, it had a horseshoe-shaped balcony. And you could, let me see how many, I wrote it down, 3,500 people.
Wow.
You could put 3,500 people. And you put on top of that, pre-integration, Oak Street, half block behind the City Auditorium. So these even big-name artists like Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald, all of these people, when they travel south, there was no hotels for them to stay in. It doesn't matter how big you were not going to go in a restaurant to eat if you were a black musician. You were not going to have a place to stay. Well, boom, you come to Waycross, we got this great auditorium. We had a black hotel. Actually, at one point, we had two. Mm-hmm. And, all of a sudden, you started seeing Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald and Cab Calloway and all these people coming to town.
But the audiences were mixed.
Right. That was the
for artists like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And with the depending on the race, if it was a black group, the white people were in the balcony.
I don't know if that picture there is an old picture or what is this? Can you tell what that sign says on the corner there? Is that right after it was built, or is that after it was renovated recently? Because in the last 6 or 7 years, it was renovated.
I doubt they had that much curbing and paved streets when it was built. Let me see. It was built. Here's the
1930 something.
1937. I think it cost like $50,000 to build. Yeah. It was a WPA project. Mm-hmm. The Crawley family, Jerome Crawley's family, they donated the property for it.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. And prior to that, there was actually an opera house, not Opry, but there was an Opry house over on what's the park over by the Railroad Credit Union with the big fountain in it? Is that Folks?
Yeah. Folks Street.
Anyway, over there, that's where the Opera House was,
and
the
behind
original
the post office.
Yeah, the original was, and the American Legion was over there too. Mm-hmm. So, but all of a sudden, you start. I printed out this list. In 1939, you had the 5th annual Southeast Georgia Singers, what they call it, convention.
The Singers Convention.
Yes. Okay. Had an attendance of 7,000 people.
Good Lord. That wasn't like the gospel.
Well, it led years later to this was all amateur people that would compete.
And it didn't have to be, but it was probably predominantly gospel music.
Well, country more. Because also, before that, the week before that, we had the fiddling convention with 4,000 people there.
Man.
Wow.
Yeah. So, with that balcony, it was.
That was back when people were starved for entertainment, though. They'd come from the woods.
Oh, yeah.
For a fiddling convention.
Yeah. But by
and
41,
the all-night sings that used to happen in Waycross, too, were.
That didn't happen until. Let me see. I'll get up to it. But, starting in 41, we had Fats Waller. We had Ella Fitzgerald. We had Louis Armstrong. And then we had another singer convention with 8,000 people here. And in August, we had Cab Calloway. Yeah. And, Cab Calloway was early rock and roll. Yeah. And then world premiere of the Swamp Water motion picture. Then
that was the
Walter
motion
Brennan.
Picture filmed in the Okefenokee Swamp.
But, it just kept going. Lucky
starring
Millender,
Walter Brennan.
Yeah, Lucky Millender, Louis Jordan. Erskine Hawkins, that's an important name because he was the first to have what was called a progressive big band. And Dizzy Gillespie was here with him. Mm-hmm. Then starting in about 45, you started seeing more country. Had Ernest Tubb here, mm-hmm. and then Billy Eckstein with Dizzy Gillespie, Roy Acuff, Louis Armstrong again, the Nicholas Brothers tap dancers with Dizzy Gillespie.
That was the black.
Yes,
tap dancers. Yeah.
Joe Leggins and his Honey Drippers. Ella Fitzgerald. And then, so 46, we had Minnie Pearl, mm-hmm. and we also had the WSM Radio Paul Howard and State Fiddlers Convention. get this now, 47, the New York Opera Company performed Rigoletto and Carmen.
Good Lord.
Inside. Tiny Bradshaw, Big Joe Turner. Then 48, it was country come to town. You had Ernest Tubb, Roy Acuff, Cowboy Copas. He died in a plane crash with Patsy Cline. Carmen Cavallero, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, and the singing convention in 49. Hovey Lister and the Statesmen, they were the very first professional group to be added to the lineup that would keep going until it became the All Night Sing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had the Statesmen, Lefevres, the Happy Goodman family, the Spear family, and the Blackwood brothers, Statesmen, you know, and then it was just like Hank Williams Sr. Check out that Hank poster over there. And you had...
Now, are these the posters that you recreated?
These are the recreation posters. What I did is I took these were taken from the advertisements in the Waycross Journal-Herald or the Negro supplement to the Waycross Journal-Herald. And what I did is I took the picture, and that's exactly the way the picture looked in the ad. Mm-hmm. And with all of the you know, the songs that were plugging at the time, mm-hmm. And the people that were on it, and then of course, you know, I wanted to put how much it was to get in, $1, $1.25. Yeah. Hank Ballard, some people thought he was from Waycross because he played here so much.
It is really
Hank Ballard in the Midnighters, and of course Elvis Presley. On this poster, I have the wrong date. I need to go back and change it.
Yep, it was June.
No, it was February 22nd.
22nd.
Now,
it is February. Yeah.
Elvis Presley, Maybelle and June Carter, Justin Tubb, and the Louvin brothers, which was, some people think that's where Graham fell in love with the High Lonesome.
Well, here's the thing about this concert. When Graham Parsons, or at the time his name was Graham Connor,
right,
was living in Waycross in 1956. He was 9 years old and a huge little fan of Elvis Presley. And he attended this concert right here on the screen, this flyer. And when you look at it, he was introduced to the king of rock and roll, Elvis, that night, who he's a big fan of. And he was also introduced to the music of the Louvin brothers. And fast forward years later, when he became Graham Parsons, the Graham Parsons who went out to Los Angeles and started playing with the Byrds and formed a group called the Flying Burrito Brothers, and then discovered Emmylou Harris and recorded his own albums. Many of the songs that he recorded were Louvin Brothers covers. Cash on the Barrelhead, in particular. That was on.
Well, you and I have talked at length for years about Graham, and
could it have all been because of that night? That's what I wonder.
I'm kind of 50-50 on Graham, you know?
Huh?
I'm kind of 50-50 about Graham.
What do you mean?
Well, a lot of people there are certain things that he did I don't particularly care for, me personally. That doesn't have any bearing on whether or not it's good or bad. But
you talking about musically?
Yeah,
that he did?
yeah.
Okay.
And also it's kind of hard to get the truth about Graham sometimes because, you know, he had trouble with the truth himself.
Well, yeah.
Some of the people, but I think, and this is from me, the academic historian, okay? And that's pretty much the way I research all this stuff. I think I've got 7 Graham Parsons books in my personal library. And, of course, you got to listen to his music, too. But I don't think that Graham really hit on the right thing until he hooked up with Emmylou. I like the stuff that he did with her, and she was the first person that ever slapped him on the back of his head and said, "Wake up, we're going to practice." Because we sucked last night.
Yeah.
I think that the Louvin brothers connection finally clicked.
Yeah.
When he landed Emmylou. I like the stuff. I would like to have seen what he would have been. It's one of these I would like to have known. I just think that his career would have been there would have been so much more from him.
Well, it did get better as it went.
But that to me, that was to me the aha moment. When he started writing, and he had Emmylou's voice in his head, and he knew, okay, I'm not going to have to try to convince these people to do this. I'm not going to have to try to teach them how to do it. I'm not going to worry about whether or not they've ever heard any of this kind of stuff before. No, he knew right then, and he wrote that, and he heard Emmylou's voice in his head. He knew, boom, that's on. But, it's funny because we talked before the camera started rolling about Graham's half-brother from Berrien County, and he was adopted into my family. My aunt on my father's side handled the adoption. She was an attorney and the comptroller for Snively Grove Box Company. But on the other side of my family, my grandmother used to run the record department at the Ware Tire Company.
That's where he bought his
that the
records.
Lipsies owned. And
that's where Graham bought his little 45.
And I asked my grandmother before she passed away, I said, Mom, Grandma, do you ever remember this kid, Graham Parsons, that used to come in?
Graham Connor.
Yeah, Graham. And she said, you know how old people are. She just kind of, she shook her head. She said, I felt sorry for that poor boy.
She remembered him.
Yeah, she said he would come up, always black man driving a big car, get out, open the door, let Graham out. Maybe Graham would have somebody with him. She said, but I do remember that where everybody else would get a 45 that you'd saved. Yeah. He got as many handfuls as he wanted, and she said he was the only kid in the world that had a tab that they came in and paid. But she was like, I felt so sorry. There was nobody never with that poor little old boy.
And he had a wild haircut too.
So that was kind of like Kevin Bacon, 7 Degrees of whatever.
That little boy right there, he is eat up with cool. Yeah, he's set. That is some assured self-confidence. But
she said he was so. It was so sad.
And that's probably about a 7-year-old picture, I would say.
Maybe a little older.
Maybe a little older.
He's a little heftier than 7, I think.
That could be 8 or 9, huh?
I don't know.
But yeah, it's
school picture right there.
Now
that is some new news. That's barely even 4 years old now. Somebody uncovered all that about Graham having a half brother. That was some big news. And there's a lot of people out there. Maybe some of y'all listening or watching that ain't got a clue about that. But yes, that is a new chapter.
I'll get you that. I'll get you the picture.
That I think Bob Keeling had something to do with it. The guy that he's an author out of Orlando, Florida, and he wrote a book. I would have my notes here, but I left them at the house, and my son Connor will be bringing them over for us to share with you. The tale of the week this week references the City Auditorium. And a lot of the stuff that you've already said is in that, but we also talk about in that we talk about Bob Keeling and his trip up to Waycross. He came up to one of the Graham Parsons guitar pools one year, and then he found out that Charlie Louvin was performing in 2009, and arranged for there's Bob. Called me and asked me if I could arrange a interview with Charlie Louvin at the City Auditorium.
Wow.
And I'm telling my tale of the week as we go. But it just so happened that my brother's daughter, Mary Beth Kennedy, was working for the Downtown Development Authority, or something to do with the Waycross, and she made it happen. And sure enough, Bob and Charlie sat down at the City Auditorium where he performed the night of Elvis Presley, and Graham saw them all at the same time. But
I think that in some ways the Louvin brothers might have been more influence on him than Elvis. He already knew about Elvis. Mm-hmm. I got a feeling when the Louvin brothers hit, it kind of cocked his ear.
I think it's great. It's just fantastic to think about what that moment could have caused, you know.
Well, the thing is, though, about the City Auditorium is a lot of times when it was in use, even when big names weren't there, they did square dances there.
Yeah, boy.
You had the Dell Brothers
matches. They had wrestling.
You had the Dell Brothers Palmetto Band. Have you ever heard of that one?
The Dell Brothers.
Yeah, they were a big music family in Waycross at that time. And then you had, while I was doing my research, I was kind of grabbing, different things. And in the 30s, I think it was the late 30s, you had a place here called the Hayloft.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
On McDonald Street. Over there pretty close to one of the overpasses. Mm-hmm. And it was a, quote, supper club. And they had live music in there. And it was, I know at one point it was upscale, and I think later it might have not been so upscale, but you had the Hayloft, and they would have, they'd have local talent and regional talent. Mm. And there was a fellow that used to come up from Jacksonville, and he had a TV show down there. His name was Toby Dowdy.
Toby Dowdy.
Okay, and this leads into, I was talking to Edmund Pedrick.
Yep.
God rest his soul. Yep. Edmund Pedrick. He was telling me that, okay, you have to realize that, think about it, 1956, Colonel Parker was with Elvis. Mm-hmm. He started January 1, 1956. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Edmund was telling me that the day after the big show, Elvis and his manager, who would have been Colonel Parker, they showed up at Conce Bennett Sr.'s office because Conce Bennett Sr. was in charge of the Tobacco Jubilee. That was the big event around here. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to talk to him about getting Elvis on that show.
How about that?
Well, they made him wait for a while. And finally, Conce Bennett Sr. sent word out there without even meeting with him. We got Toby Dowdy, and people would like him lots better. Thank you.
Turned Elvis down.
And so about 6 months later, Conce Bennett Sr. comes in, and he had seen the Dorsey Brothers TV show the night before. This was before
Which Elvis was on?
Right. So to me, that kind of sums up Waycross sometimes. Turn down Elvis. And we've had a curse ever since, I think.
Well, we were on, was it Time magazine with the burning of the Beatles records?
Yeah. Waycross is known for, there was a radio station out Carswell Avenue, WAYX.
Yep.
That is infamous when the American kids started, and radio stations started sponsoring these Beatle burnings after John Lennon was misquoted or it was
taken out of context.
Taken out of context in the press. And boy, these southern states, southern towns, they they had a big old knee jerk reaction to that, and
The Beatles are bigger than Jesus.
yeah, that's
I think what he said
basically-
was if Jesus was here and the Beatles had a concert, that more people would go see the Beatles than would go see Jesus.
right. Yeah, it was certainly taken out of context. He didn't mean it by anything by it, and even in England, it would just went by as totally unnoticed.
It's funny because people went and
But over
bought
here-
records to have them to bring them to burn, and they even Colonel Parker. There's no such thing as bad publicity. From the dog catcher himself.
There it is, right there, the one in the middle. That's the one below your cursor. That one right there. That's the famous Waycross WAYX Beetle burning.
Yeah, we know how to get on the news, buddy.
There they are. I wish I knew some of them people that we could quote names there.
I know
Have
it.
them on.
I guess that's the TV guy or the radio guy there with the microphone.
Yeah. Billy Ray and Johnny Bennett, who grew up on my road, claims, well, I know they were there. They rode their bikes all the way across town. And they weren't there to burn, though. They said they saw a couple, it was about nighttime when this was happening. They started throwing them in the fire, and they said that a couple of them frisbeed right through the fire and on the other side, and they ran around there and picked them up
Cupped them.
and jumped on their bicycles and rode.
Well, I tell you, I think that me personally, one of my frustrations with Waycross music has been that we don't have more a sense of overall unity across genres and everything else. Not only supporting each other, but combining some of these unique qualities we have to come up with our own real Waycross sound. A lot of good songwriters here, a lot of good players of both black and white, country, rock, contemporary. It's all here. Mm-hmm. I just would like to see more of it come together, and so that kind of come up with our own hybrid, using all of the good musicians we have around here. I mean, what you and Sean do is great. Y'all do a lot of really cool stuff. But there's just so many good musicians here. And the sad thing is there's really such a limited number of places to play. Mm-hmm. I know that when you and I
think it happened. It was happening a little more regularly back when there was... the Creek had a little bit of an influence there for a short while, and that people were coming together around that because we had Moses Studevant on drums, black guy.
Oh, yeah.
And when I was working at Crosstown Music, there was a big influx of different genres and styles coming through, country, gospel, black, church music, and we pulled off of that, and I mean, there was one time in the backyard at one of the early guitar pools, we had Moses on drums, Paul on bass, and Brad Williams on lead guitar. I think it was a trio, and that was it. But jazzy, funk, it was good.
Yeah, and there's so many really great musicians have come through here. You got Danny Moore, who they still hold an annual birthday celebration.
Was he
Danny,
the trumpet player?
Trumpet player. Yeah. He was a consummate sideman. He played with Basie and all of those. Every year they have a performance at the Jazz Church in New York to celebrate him. And, you got Graham, and then you got guys like Will Denton, who's gone to Nashville, and the guy who's the guy over in from Blackshear. What was the guitar picker's name?
Shot Jackson?
No, about our age.
Tony
a little
Casey?
younger. He played with the Statlers.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his name, though.
Yeah, he's about Philip Walker's age.
Yeah.
But, some people have gone.
Totally forgot about that, dude.
It's a lot of, there's a lot of talent's still here.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the bands that you played in back in the day?
Well, the first local band I played in was a group called Hijinks.
Hijinks.
And this is 77, 78. We had four white guys and three black guys.
Rock.
It was Alan Davis played keyboards. Rip Snow played lead.
Yeah.
Bob Tanner played rhythm. Then we had a black kid named named Wimp.
Okay.
And first rehearsal we had, Wimp only had 3 guitars on his bass. 3 strings on his bass.
3 strings on his bass.
And he couldn't even tell you the names of the strings, but son, he could play. And,
he didn't need that fourth one, did he?
And Andrew Johnson, Droop. Droop was in Wild and Peaceful.
Drew?
Droop.
Droop.
Yeah, Andrew.
Well, where am I getting a Rock from?
Well, Rock House was the saxophone player and vocalist.
He was in that band?
Yes.
Hijinks, okay.
So, we had 2, it was a band ahead of its time. I mean, we had some rap stuff going on, and I remember we did Rapper's Delight when it came out.
Wow.
But we would play, you and I had the luxury back in the day that you had 2 clubs in town that ran entertainment 6 nights a week. You had the Foxtrot and Sir Henry's.
Okay.
You worked the door at Sir Henry's some, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
But you could always go out and hear good
bouncer.
music. Yeah. Okay. You could, but we would play. One night we'd play at a white club, and we played our Skinnerd and all of that. And we did Mother's Finest, Baby Love. We did, we were a hardcore funk band. Mm-hmm. And the next weekend we would play at the American Legion over on Dorothy Street.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, we played Leonard Skinnerd at the Black American Legion. But we also played Rock, Skate, Roll, Bounce. And
they were accepting of it, though.
Yeah, because we were, music's music, people are people. Mm-hmm. But I've bounced around. I played in a little society band with Joel Williams. There's more money doing. Yeah, there was more money doing that. Yeah. I played when I was in college. I played in a band out of Vidalia called the Missing Links Band. And over the years, me and Sean wrote
a song. And we named the band, the fake band in the song. We named it the Missing Links.
That was one of Chicago's early names.
Is that right?
Yeah. But probably my favorite group, and I used to, and I still do. I was the official sit-in guy or fill-in guy. Yeah. That if somebody's sick or whatever, call Bill. But I played for years with in a weekend band with Bruce Wood. Bruce dealing with some health issues right now too, and just one of the finest drummers I've ever played with.
I grew up across the street from
simple, consistent timekeeper of
Where was that at?
Right across the street from my mama's.
Not Bruce lived out there?
Yeah, not the White House, but the brick house to the right of that one.
We had, and for a while, we had Philip Walker and Tony Cason in that group. And then they left to start another band. And we brought Rocky in to sing with that group. And Steve Glisson played bass.
What's the name of this one?
We started out as, it was the backup band actually for Joey and Junior when they started back working as the Bushmen.
Yeah.
And after that, we were called, I don't even remember.
Wasn't that a kind of an oldies band?
Oh yeah, it was a
time.
It was a kicking soul band.
Oh man,
we had
I remember seeing a video of y'all.
Yeah, we did the whole
St. Simon's. Might have been Emmeline's.
There was plenty of work back then, and that was one of my favorite local band gigs because it was such an unselfish
Flashback.
Group. Yeah, Flashback, and then we were the Midnight Movers. After the Wilson Pickett song. Mm-hmm. But that was probably my favorite band. It was so unselfish, the groove. Nobody cared about playing a solo. No, the most important thing, David Hess was playing guitar with us, and probably one of the best soul rhythm players I played with. And you're right up there at the top of the list too. Dave plays great soul rhythm. I remember I'd forgot that until we played the Percy Sledge gig, and you were just chank, man. You were just laying that, Bill Smith playing all this fancy stuff, but that don't hold the groove down. But I've done fill-in work with old Bill Dill and the Rondells, and different agency bands. And they just bus full up, pick me up, and I'd go play in Hilton Head or whatever, collect paycheck. Mm-hmm. So, but I think I probably sat in and played with everybody. When Skip went to Nashville, I sang with Alibi until they lined up Scott Nickel.
Buddy Skip Sasser, who's not with us anymore. Another local Waycross.
One time they called me and
singer.
Said, George was on the way to the gig. They played Little Nights. George was on the way to the gig. He had a wreck. Can you come play keyboards till he gets
George
here?
Farr?
Yeah. So I went down and played keyboards. I played bass with them some. Whatever. People call me, I'll show up and play. Count me off. We ready to go. It won't be fancy, but it'll be solid.
Well, here's another angle that we hadn't discussed yet. Billy Ray Herring, who we talk about a lot on here, he's another local musician, songwriter, historian. He's a big Graham Parsons historian. He owned a studio in his backyard, probably back in the 80s. And he was fixing to upgrade to a new system, and he had his old equipment for sale. And you walked in one day and said, I'm here to buy it.
Yeah, what I should have done was just gone out Jackson Highway and opened up my wallet, driving 100 miles an hour going down the road.
Well, you ended up, though, building the studio of your own out there. Blackshear Avenue. Yeah. And
learned a lot, but lost a lot of money.
What was the name of that studio?
Tracks,
that's right. I performed in there one time. Yeah. Maybe more than once, but this one time, I recall it was like a public service announcement.
Don't drop out.
Don't drop out.
Yep, I remember that.
I can't remember who was behind that. Cookie D'Amico had something to do with it.
I remember Rhonda.
Wasn't she a radio?
Yeah, Rhonda Wood was involved in it, and some friend of hers, I think, did part of the lead vocal.
Yeah, I remember that good-looking gal. And I guess I played rhythm guitar.
Probably. You must have been the only guitar picker there. Because I didn't play
I guess we had a band, didn't we? There was a drummer, rhythm, bass.
Whatever.
And
I was just engineering on that gig.
That was your studio.
Yeah, but I wasn't really
It was the old song, Don't Hang Up, by whoever.
Yeah.
The Orlons or whoever. It's an old 50s song. Oh, no.
Yep. Yeah, and recording. That's the thing.
Don't Drop Out. It must have been like a national education.
Yeah.
Something to do with don't drop out of school.
Recording, if I had one constant in my career, that's probably it. Is recording. I think it's where I do my best work. I've actually got 6 CDs out on iTunes and Amazon. Got a company out of Canada that handles them for me. And I get a penny a year from Spotify and Pandora.
Sons of
have you seen the meme of the picture of the jeans? With the pocket where in workers' jeans you have that thing where you can slide your pencil in.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen that before? Somebody got a picture of that and they said, you know what that little thing is? That's where you put musicians
keep
put
your-
the money they get from Spotify.
Spotify royalties.
Yeah. So that but yeah, I've got that stuff out there, and it's
Solid gold sax.
Yeah. It was a matter of fact, that was my introduction to Rodney Mills. He mixed and mastered some of my stuff for me.
Okay.
So it's still what I enjoy doing the most now. And I'm getting ready to release 150 Ableton live tracks for churches.
150. What kind
Tracks for all the songs, they do in these contemporary churches and all.
of background music?
Yeah.
Just background tracks?
Well, yeah, for Ableton is a multi-track format to use live.
I can't understand what you're saying. Ableton?
Ableton.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Sorry, my
that-
talking isn't real clear.
I apologize for.
No, that's
but,
all right. But no,
Ableton, is that like a?
it's a multi-track format that you can use
okay.
live,
Gotcha.
and it loads quickly. And what you can do with Ableton is they can go in there and turn off what tracks. Let's say they've got a drummer and a bass player and a piano player, or if they want to
You
slow
can
it.
mix it.
Yeah, you can, or you can change tempos. You can change keys off.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I've got like 150 tracks there, and I'm releasing 100. I call them buskers tracks
Yeah.
for horn players. Play all the stuff I've used over the years when I played solo. And,
Mm-hmm.
just it's always about finding what your thing is and trying to figure out how to monetize it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's, I've told people so often that the real question you have is finding a balance between artistic integrity and paying the bills.
Mm-hmm.
Now, me, I'm not a songwriter. Well, I wrote that. I found love at the Walmart song, but I'm not a songwriter. I've always been a musician for hire.
Yeah.
And I will play any kind of music you pay me to play. Now, I say that as long as it's done with some type of integrity.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people, they'll only do one thing. I'd rather play some music that I wasn't crazy about than I would flip burgers at McDonald's. So, I've always just kind of played whatever, and whatever I showed up to play, I gave it my all. I never looked at it like, this is so beneath me. No, it's not. People sitting there listening to it want to hear it, and the other people playing it are into it. So if you can't do that, you need to stay home. So,
well, getting back to the recording studio, you were involved in this this one too. You had your recording studio set up at your house.
yep.
A couple of blocks away from here, and 1 year for the Grand Parsons guitar pool, we had Ian Dunlop
Yeah.
over from Cornwall, England. Ian was one of Graham's bandmates back in the International Submarine Band, and he became a constant guest headliner at the guitar pools beginning in about 2008 or 9. I think 2008 may have been Ian's first year over here, and we had him back every year. But one of the years, you extended the invitation to him because what Ian would do, he'd come over here to America to perform at the guitar pool, and he'd come over a couple of weeks early and just take his time and visit with family and up north, and then kind of wind his way down to Georgia. And once he got here, he generally would spend the night over at my house, and then he'd write songs with Sean. He'd write songs with me and just kind of piddle around. Might get some gigs down in Florida and go over to the coast of Georgia and hang out for a few days. And he was just kind of laid back for about a month he would spend over here in America before he'd make that big long trip back. But while he was here, he liked to write songs with us and record as many of them as we could. At the time, I guess the only studio available would have been Hickory Wind Studio, and you offered your services, and we did go in there and record a few tracks.
Yeah, I was not happy at all with.
We got one of them here.
I was not happy with the work. I was having some technical problems with D to A and A to D conversion between my ADATs and the other stuff, and we never could seem to get all of the right musicians sitting in there at one time. That was the hardest. That was the thing. We never could get the right pickers for the right songs all at one time.
That was long before my son was
right.
old enough to play, and my son plays a great train beat.
It was.
I think Dylan Crosby came over and played.
I mean, when Dylan played, he was fine. It was just getting everybody in here sat down at the same time. We had what's his name, played steel.
Jody Parrott.
No, his dad was
Josh Sharp.
Yeah, he came in and played some lap steel maybe or some dobro, and
that was Jody.
That was Jody. Did that. Yeah.
That was. I always saw that as kind of a wasted opportunity because I didn't feel like we ever
captured it.
We never had the right people sitting down to play at the right time. That was my take on it.
This I have to play this or a section of this, and this to me sounds mighty dang good. Now this is an Ian mix. I think Ian took the original
He
tracks back with him.
My lonely heart was waiting. You came right on time. You soon had me believing true love was on your mind. You took me straight to heaven. I thought we had it made, but baby, heaven was just a stop along the way.
Nice.
Now there's a long train rolling, a blue moon above. You switched me back, I jumped the track on your railroad love. You engineered my sadness, treated me so cruel. Now I'm just another rider on your long train of fools.
Jody Parrott on the dobro.
See, if I had another shot at that, I'd like you have Connor in there playing the train beat.
We had a love to burn. I thought we were
I think that was Dylan on drums on this.
Took a different turn.
I'd probably do
What
something.
did you play? Did you play the bass?
I did play the bass, but I think he recut the bass.
And I think I played that little rhythm.
Switched me back. I jumped the track on your
We recorded several though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we could have done more. You know, we could have had everybody in the right place and had them sitting there long enough to really gel. And
I'm just another rider.
When we do that song about the credit cards.
I didn't even remember we did this one until we hit play. So I don't remember which ones we did.
Get on board. You just tie me on, Mr. Conductor. But
man, if you'd had some, if you had just some good harmonica,
Yeah.
And that train beat in there.
I like the end of it before it quit. Play it. It was fixing to do that train leaving the station because we slowly built up speed till it got going faster and faster and faster. You ain't got to play that, but
I remember
just a cool.
He came over one
ending.
evening and we got to hang out and talk. And I really, like I said, I've been fortunate to get to meet and be around a lot of really important people in music history.
Mm-hmm.
From Dizzy Gillespie to Charlie Parker, and because of the work that you've done around here, I got to hang out with Ian. I got to meet John Louise. Is that how you say his name?
I don't know if we. Where did you meet
he
John
was.
Louise?
He was there the year that Phil Kaufman was here.
No, he's never been to a guitar pool. No,
Who was it?
John Cornell.
John Cornell.
Yeah.
Cornell.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed getting to know people that were.
You know what? You hit the nail on the head. That's what matters to me most about the guitar pool. If there's anything that I enjoyed the most about, or am most proud of about having that thing and having it last for so many years, is the people that it has brung together.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about from all walks of all over the place. And here's an example, and you're right at the center of this. I was working at Crosstown Music, and we had moved from downtown to behind Walmart.
Yep.
And you were helping me that day, because probably I had a gig to go through. You would always come in and spare me when I'd have to leave early. But one afternoon we were sitting in there, and in walks this couple from California of all places. But they had flown from California to a wedding or a funeral somewhere on the South Coast, and they rented a car and were driving south on I-95 when they came through Brunswick, and there's their exit 82 or exit something for Highway 82, said Waycross to the right. And they both looked at one another. This was Bill McDonald was his name.
So was.
And he and his wife, God rest her soul, she's passed on now. But he and his wife were driving. They both saw that Waycross, Georgia exit, and they said, Graham Parsons. And they said, let's go. So they pulled off and drove an hour and got to Waycross and came straight to the music store. They may have went by the Chamber of Commerce. That's often what people would do from out of town. They go by the Chamber of Commerce.
Bill was he was expecting to see a big sign or a statue or something.
Yeah.
And they got directed to me out at Crosstown Music. They showed up at the store, and I said, "Man, I can't leave the store, Bill. You know where Graham's house is. Take this couple over there and show them Graham's house."
And
you did.
But if you remember, that was the first year we had the lanyards. And I had made a prototype for you to look at. And it was, the Graham Parsons backstage, all access, whatever. It had his picture.
Was that the weekend of the festival?
No, we were working. We were working on the design.
Okay, so
it was like a week or two away. Prototype.
Oh,
and I had it with me, and I gave that to them.
Oh,
you would have thought it was backstage to the Rolling Stones. He was so proud of that thing.
Now here's the other side of this story. The guy from California, Bill McDonald, ended up being a videographer.
Yeah,
he'd already been.
I mean, he was
like
he was a
Cousteau.
serious.
Yeah.
He worked for Jacques Cousteau back in the '60s, and he went out on tour with David Crosby and Graham Nash when they did their duo tour, Wind on the Water, where they had this huge video screen set up on stage behind them with the whale footage and everything. It may have been Bill. Bill was hired for that tour, so it's probably his footage that he shot. So he knew them personally.
Yeah,
Crosby and Nash.
Actually, what he would do is he would go to these resorts down in like Micronesia and all, and he would just like basically, if you'll pay my expenses, I get all of the leftover film stock. And he had this huge library of video. And so what he ended up doing is on one of his demos, he used Solid Gold Sax, my CD, as the background music on his.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've got the DVD at home. But I don't remember going to the house. I remember the look in his eyes when I took that lanyard off my neck and said, "Here, why don't you take this?" Oh, man, he was bad. I thought he was going to cry.
Yeah, he's been back. I think he and his wife came. They weren't able to make that year, but the very next year they came all the way back for it.
I remember going out to the hotel and everything and hanging with him.
Unfortunately, she passed away, and
he did he shot a lot of video of the year that you had the recording thing in.
Yeah.
I was stage manager that year.
You know what? Okay, I think that's true. So, I think we sent him footage that Tim Thrift had videoed some footage from 2007. The last time we had it at Little Nights, and I sent him all of that footage, and he laid graphics on top of it and kind of put it all together. That's what that was.
But he brought one time when it was out at the fairgrounds, he brought some video equipment. I remember that was the year that I helped you as stage manager, and you brought in that
Charlie
truck.
Leuven.
No, Alana Hines.
Okay.
And she came in as a duo. That would have been
2008. Yeah.
She came in as a duo, and I remember he was taking a line off the truck. He had his video camera out there, and he's pulling the sound off of that truck that's parked back there. So yeah, he was. Bill was good. He's a good guy.
Big Justin, you met him too, didn't you?
Big. When it comes to that video, and when you work with Jacques Cousteau, huge.
He had a
kind of
a contest for
songwriting
contest for writing songs about ocean pollution and stuff like that. And I entered that and wrote a song special for it, and I didn't place, but he gave me like an honorable.
You remember the song?
Prize. Yeah, I don't remember how to play it. It was called Seasick.
Seasick. That's good idea. I think LaDon Drury might have been one of the winners. Did you know that?
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
I can't remember the name of his song, but
well, you know, I had a kid come in, talking about songwriters. My college roommate, one of the two, I'd kind of been advising them about their son. He was from like 8 years old, was really interested in music, and he wanted a set of drums. And I told them to get him a piano instead, and they did. And I kind of advised them, and my buddy retired from the Air Force in Valdosta. And the kid started coming over when he was a junior in high school. And he was, I hate to say this because Sean is you and Sean both are great songwriters, but this kid, he was the real deal. And I worked with him a good bit. And fast forward a few years, he signed a co-publishing deal with Warner Chappell and Liz Rose. And they gave him a $60,000 signing bonus because he brought 600 completed songs to the table.
What's his name?
His name is Seth Ennis. E-N-N-I-S. He had a record deal with Sony, and he was with them a couple of years, but they were trying to make him out to be Jason Aldean. And he was making lots more money he wrote Hooked for Dylan Scott, and he walked away from his record deal, and he's part of that new breed of musicians that are trying to chart their own path in the streaming world by supporting some of the, there's some other streaming platforms out there other than Spotify and Pandora. There's one called AWOL, and there's another one called Bandcamp.
I've heard of.
And, he basically negotiated his own streaming deal. And, if you're not a top artist, streaming, you're not going to get squat. And he's real smart. He's a real good businessman. I tell you what, on his first release for Sony, he played everything, co-wrote, and co-produced it. Mm-hmm. But he just never could seem to break through. And if you don't break through, then you're on the low end of the pecking order of the streaming, and you don't. I know that in 2009, Peter Frampton, Spotify streamed "Baby I Love Your Ways" 50 million times, and Peter Frampton's cut on it was $1,800. Guy that owns Spotify is worth $2.5 billion.
Yeah,
that just ain't right.
So it's a whole new ball game for artists, and it's a
whole new ball game for streaming services.
Yeah.
Well, but the thing is,
a whole new challenge for artists.
Well, it's the problem. I had thought that when you started digital downloads, that you'd finally see the artists get the upper hand on the record labels, but the record labels managed to keep their stranglehold on it. But the reason I say that is the reason that people that are watching this, that they need to get out and support Dave and Sean and all the other local artists that are playing. And if they got CDs sitting out there on the table, you need to buy them, because you have to download a song you have to stream a song on the average about 7,000 times to make what you'd make for one download. Mm-hmm. So, it's the people really need to support local musicians, live music, and all of that, because artists have always had the short end of that record deal stick.
Yeah. And
there was actually Seth. He had a feature article in People magazine about what he did. Mm-hmm. And of course, his dad's got undergrad degrees in finance and econ. He's got an MBA, and he's got a doctorate in management. So the kid came by it honestly, but just looking at the fact that he realized that he would rather take a chance and be in charge of his own fate than he would just keep. But he's fortunate that he's got songwriting royalties rolling in.
Quantity.
Yeah, and he realized too that he was spending so much. He'd go on these radio station tours for the record label and be gone for a month, doing 3 stations a day. And he said, never got it right. So he just walked away from it.
Well, after learning that about Spotify, I'm so depressed now that I think we're going to take a short break. I'm going to walk in the kitchen and slash my wrist with the butcher knife.
Cheese grater.
And
wait a minute.
Hopefully we'll be back.
Hold on. I can hook you up, buddy. Great exposure. This is great exposure for your career.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
That ought to pick you up.
We'll be right back.
Something in my brain won't let me stray. Something in my veins gonna find its way. Something in the water taught me how to pray. When that cold black water finds its way into your veins, you'll never be the same.
Welcome back, folks. It's time for another Tale of the Week from yours truly. And this one is exceptionally relevant considering our fine guest this time. It's all about the Waycross City Auditorium. Throughout history, certain small southern towns have ingrained themselves in the cultural hearts and minds of people around the world. Whether it be through the townsfolk born or raised there who went on to fame and fortune, or a hallowed building whose spirit lingers on, manifested in the ghosts of the music and the people who once played there. Waycross, Georgia is one of those towns. From Ossie Davis and Pernell Roberts to Graham Parsons, Waycross has had its share of famous actors and musicians. It's also home to the Waycross City Auditorium. A stolid brick edifice that has seen the best of the best sing and play on its humble stage. Built in 1937 through the help of the local Lions Club chapter and funding from the Works Progress Administration project, the City Auditorium was used for gospel sings, wrestling matches in the 40s, some of the best teen dances in the 60s, high school graduations. I received my diploma.
I too.
From Ware County High in 1971.
76.
As my unfortunate classmate Kenneth Hawkins slid head first down the stage steps and landed on his nose. It's also home to basketball games and circuses. Over the years, the building fell into disarray, but thanks to our local government and forward-thinking citizens, a special purpose local option sales tax was passed in 2008, enabling the renovation of the historic building that played host to black, white, blues, jazz, country, and gospel heroes of the day. Just check out this list of who was who in the music biz, who at one time graced the auditorium stage. Fats Waller. There wasn't nothing too fat about him. Cab Calloway. Ella Fitzgerald. Louis Armstrong. Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Big Joe Turner. Dizzy Gillespie. The Ink Spots. Hank Williams Sr., Ernest Tubb, Roy Acuff, Tex Ritter, Minnie Pearl, Bill Monroe, Kitty Wells, George Jones, Johnny Cash, Ray Price, Webb Pierce, Farron Young, Marty Robbins, Little Jimmy Dickens, Conway Twitty, Roy Orbison, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Guy Lombardo.
That's a list.
I'm telling you. But it was the night of February 22nd, 1956, that was a virtual rock toss into cultural waters, causing ripples that affected the lives of many, some still to this day. I'm sure the city of Waycross, at least the teenage sector, was abuzz on that Wednesday after reading in the Waycross Journal-Herald that Elvis Presley, country music's Mr. Rhythm, would perform 2 shows that night at 7 and 9 p.m. Is there any way to blow that up? You can't get that larger, can you? That's just so cool. Yeah. Elvis Presley, as you see there, well, you can't tell there, but they misspelled Mr. Rhythm. Rhythm's a hard word to spell anyhow, but it's got 2 H's in it, R-H-Y-T-H-M, but they left out the first H.
They probably had it there, but when he wiggled, it went away.
That's right. And what kills me about this is all seats in advance, $1. At the door, $1.25. Ooh.
Back in my day, I saw Elvis for $1.
That's right. On the bill with Elvis were Grand Ole Opry favorites Justin Tubbs, son of Ernest, the Louvin brothers, Ira and Charlie, Mother Maybelle and the Carter sisters, featuring June Carter, and a bluegrass fiddler, Benny Martin. All for the price of $1.25 at the door. In the audience that evening was 9-year-old Ingram Cecil Connor III, who would later be known as Graham Parsons, who tagged along with teenage twin sisters Daphne and Diane Delano. It's been said that Graham met Elvis after the show and introduced himself as, "I'm the little kid that buys your records." What is known is that Elvis had a meteorical impact on Graham Parsons in his desire to become a performing musician following an endless pursuit of stardom. Years later, Parsons would record 2 critically acclaimed country albums entitled GP and Grievous Angel, using the talents of Elvis's stage band, James Burton on lead guitar, Glenn D. Harden on piano, and Ronnie Tutt on drums. Not to be lost in all this is the performance on February 22nd, 1956, of Charlie and Ira Louvin, the Louvin brothers, whose songs Graham recorded over the years with the Byrds, The Christian Life, and with Emmylou Harris, Cash on the Barrelhead. I booked Charlie as co-headliner of the 2009 annual Graham Parsons Guitar Pull and Tribute Festival, and he very graciously recorded his live festival performance and released the CD Hickory Wind live at the Graham Parsons Guitar Pull, Waycross, Georgia, in tribute to Graham, the little boy who saw him perform at the City Auditorium 53 years earlier. To continue the ripple effect analogy, in attendance at the 2009 Guitar Pull was one Bob Keeling, a television broadcast journalist and published author from Orlando, Florida. Bob was in the process of writing a biography titled Calling Me Home, Graham Parsons and the Roots of Country Rock. When he found out that Charlie Louvin was headlining, he called and asked if I could facilitate an interview with the country legend at the Waycross City Auditorium. Of course, we talked about this earlier. My wonderful niece, Mary Beth Kennedy, was in a position of importance with the city and was instrumental in making sure it happened. The Louvin interview framed the final chapter in Keeling's book, thus bringing another story full circle. On June 9th, 2017, the Waycross City Auditorium provided the backdrop for one more full circle ripple effect get-together. Entitled From Calling Me Home to Elvis Ignited, an event co-sponsored by Safe at Home Productions and Hickory Wind Music, featured a book signing for Bob Keeling's newest effort, Elvis Ignited, and a guitar pull fundraiser showcasing the original music of Waycross's own Pine Box Dwellers in concert. Elvis Ignited tells the story of Presley's early career as he performed all across the South, particularly in Florida and Waycross at the City Auditorium. Bob Keeling, the author, is now retired from Orlando, Florida's WESH-TV. He is an Edward R. Murrow and 4-time Emmy Award-winning broadcast journalist. He's also been influential in the establishment of the Jack Kerouac House in Orlando, a literary landmark in the National Register of Historic Places, and the Graham Parsons Dairy Down, a Florida heritage site honoring the pioneering country rock musician in his birthplace of Winter Haven. On a personal level, it gives me a wonderful feeling to know that our little homegrown tribute festival has brought people of interest together with common bonds and a passion for music. On a cosmic level, though, I know it's the old ripple effect of Waycross, Georgia, and the city's mother church of music, Waycross City Auditorium.
Heck yeah.
What a place. What a place.
It sure is. I never went to any of the teenage dances there. I was sheltered.
I saw Eli there.
Did you?
Yeah.
That was a top-notch road band.
You mentioned we played there for Bob Killen's book signing. Man, what a boomy room, though.
Yeah. I've played there in the last 4 or 5 years, too.
Dave, he never had to play the ballroom at the Elks Club, did he? You don't know anything.
Yeah.
Man, it was slapping back at us.
Comes off the walls. Yeah, it does.
That we used to call the Red Room was fun to play. Mm-hmm. The ballroom, the boomatorium.
Well, it was like the
block,
concrete block, like a lunchroom.
Yeah, except it was tall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They tried to soften it up with them big old drapes.
Yeah, and they put some tiles up there at some point. But yeah, well, the auditorium originally had a balcony, and it would seat about 3,000 people with chairs and my parents used to talk about, or mainly my dad, he'd talk about, I went to see, I saw, he named some big band, and I'm like, hi, Dad, or whatever. So, fast forward from talking to my dad to, I guess it's about 1983, and I'm in college at Valdosta State. Great jazz program. And we had in, as a guest artist for the week, a man named Red Rodney. And in the jazz world, Red is very well known because he played trumpet with Charlie Parker.
Bird.
Yes, Bird. Charlie Parker's considered, and the word greatest is thrown around, but really he's considered the greatest jazz saxophonist of all time. Died, late 30s, I think, and they thought he was about 70. He was the one that got everybody started on heroin because everybody thought, to play like Bird, you got to get on heroin.
Didn't he jump out a window or something?
No, that was Chet Baker. But what happened is if you got busted, you lost your cabaret license in New York. If you lost your cabaret license, you could not play in places that had
couldn't make a living.
Right. So Bird lost his cabaret license. And so here's Red Rodney. All right. You have to understand Red is white, but he's got real kinky red hair and a real funny complexion. Mm-hmm. And so we're in a master class with him, and he'd come from L.A., and he was like, where's Waycross, Georgia? And I went, that's where I'm from. It's an hour from here. Why? He said, well, Clint Eastwood is producing a movie about Charlie Parker. Mm-hmm. And it was a huge, critically acclaimed movie, but in America, it played to roomfuls of crickets. Mm-hmm. But it was just an incredible movie about Charlie Parker. Well, so we were talking. He said, I said, why? How do you know about Waycross? He said, well, Bird had lost his cabaret license. And so we were going on tour to the Deep South. And we're talking the 40s. Mm-hmm. And you got 4 or 5 black guys and this one white guy traveling to the Deep South. Mm-hmm. And all the way down, Red kept saying, hey, Bird, man, what are we going to do about me, white? Don't worry about it, man. I got it under control. And he said, so we pull into, and this is in the movie. Now, it doesn't say Waycross.
Yeah.
But they pull into town, and there's posters everywhere that say, Charles Yardbird Parker featuring Albino Red blues singer. And so they got the auditorium in there looking pretty run down, maybe. But, all the white people are up in the balcony, and all the black people are down there. And Red said, I couldn't sing a lick. And it shows him on stage, but he was telling me about that.
How about
And then when the movie came out, there it was, and there's Waycross again in a big budget.
I never heard that story.
So
I never,
the movie's called Bird.
and I'm ashamed to say I never watched that movie because I might have been one of the crickets in the theater. I never did. I never gave it a chance.
He
But
told me about
I love
that.
Clint Eastwood. Though.
Yeah. But when he told me that, and then I went and watched the movie, I could just see my dad up in the balcony, carrying on.
That's going to be my assignment for tonight. That'll give me some good. I like
it's tough to
kick
follow.
back and watch a movie and go to sleep.
It's a tough follow.
It's a tough
follow.
As far as watching it, it's hard to watch. Okay.
And very sad. I mean, he was one of the first who suffered and died for his art.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some country singers and blues singers and all, but
how did he die? Was it heroin or
just it finally wiped him out completely, and he went. It got to the point where he couldn't play anywhere, and there was a lady up there, and she was kind of like a countess who had plenty of money, and he was supposed to go out of town and play, and he went by her place, and he was feeling too weak to leave to go to the gig, and she called a doctor, and the doctor came in and saw him and said, "This man needs to be in the hospital." And Bird wouldn't go, and he was sitting there watching the Dorsey Brothers TV show and just died.
Oh, man.
And when the ambulance came to, the meat wagon came, he was an unidentified person, and they said estimated age like 70, and he was in his 30s.
Wow.
Yeah, he and Dizzy Gillespie, they founded that bebop movement, and they completely elevated chord structure. Because up until then it was all about the triad and the seven, and then all of a sudden Dizzy and Bird they started grabbing all those flat nines and 11s, all the upper tones. They started. That was the beginning of bebop, and he went almost like Robert Johnson. Went away one summer. He was in a jam session and he got booed off the stage, and he went away one summer and stayed out in the woods and came back a beast. But yes, sir, right here at
you left out that he met the devil too.
Yeah. He probably met him in Waycross.
He met him at Crossroads.
Man.
Well, folks, if you found this episode hard to follow, like the Charlie Parker movie, you ain't the only one. That's flat sevenths and minor majors and triads and all that stuff goes right over this old boy's head. But you have to be a band director and a good musician to know them kind of things. And that's what our guest tonight, Mr. Bill McIntosh. We appreciate you coming on, Bill. It's been a good one.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Heck yeah, man.
I enjoyed actually learned more on this episode than I have in many of the past ones. So
it was a lot of good history.
There's so much here. I mean, it's the articles that I did a number of years ago. They were good, but it was just a start, really, of the incredible heritage that this town has and still has and is still creating.
And folks, that's why they call it Something in the Water. We appreciate y'all watching, and tune in again. See you next time.
When the cold black water finds its way across through your veins, it just might seal your fate. It just might seal your fate. It just might seal your fate.